Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this online meetup where every Saturday we'll be discussing a tool, a technology, a framework, or some concept which is related to domain of machine learning, data science, software engineering, or web development. Today's title is Demystifying Scikit-learn. That means we'll be basically pulling apart scikit-learns and its various components, its various parts. We are doing this to understand scikit-learn better. Okay, after the seminar you will feel much more confident about your scikit-learn skills, and also a scikit-learn will look more natural to you. There are a couple of prerequisites, so I'm assuming everyone who's attending has some prior knowledge of machine learning. This will be a huge advantage. And people who are new to this thing, like they don't have any prior machine learning background, so I'll try my best to keep it as simple as possible. You can follow along, but you might face some challenges in between. Okay? But I'll try to keep them as generic as possible. So it's not like you won't understand anything. You'll find it a bit more difficult to keep up with everyone, but even beginners can get something out of the session. Before we can actually start with the content of the session, we'll have to first understand the ML landscape and what it means. For a very simple machine learning model, these are the three basic stages that you need. Okay, first you need your data, and then you will train your model based on that data. And after training, you will make predictions. These are the three basic steps that you usually take. Now, this is what we are being told when we are learning theory. But as soon as you get into practice, you will see all these different things that come into the picture. For data, first you will have to gather data. So for that you can use web scraping, you can use API, you can basically take it from a database, or you can load it from a file. Once you have your data, you will have to clean it. Most of the time data is not in a format which can be used directly. It's in very raw format, so it has a lot of noise and a lot of cleaning has to be done before we can actually use it. Then we do data munging. Then if also your data is not labeled, you will have to do data labeling. Once you have data, based on your EDA and other analytical skills, you will engineer new features. You can select features which you think are important. Using the domain knowledge, you can do feature engineering, feature selection, feature extraction. And we also do a lot of data visualization and analytical stuff to understand our data better, because this will help us in the further stages of the machine learning development. Then there are like other types of pre-processing like normalizing, encoding, imputing, and other things, which are basically pre-processing steps that is expected by your model. Your model expects that your data should be normalized. Every categorical value is encoded. There are no missing values. These are some requirements of your model. So you'll have to transform the data accordingly again. This all comes under data. And then when it comes to training, you will find many more cryptic terms. We'll start by splitting our data into features and labels. Once we have our features and labels, we have to do model selection, because there are like so many models, and to decide which class of model to use, it will be very important. Then you will have to do parameter tuning for that model, and when you are doing all these things, you will have to also log your experiments. So you need a tool for managing your experiments. Also, you end up, when you have 4 or 5 different models which are doing really good, you end up ensembling them, you end up stacking them, and when you are introducing more and more model with bigger data sets, you will have to finally move everything to distributed training, where you have multiple cores, multiple CPUs, and all multiple systems in a cluster, and then you will be training. Now, when you will be talking about distributed training, you will also need a lot of software engineering skills. How do you write scripts? How do you write test cases? How do you automate all the part of like running the script, training the model, saving the weights, and all those things? How can you automate them? So you will also need a lot of software engineering skills. And when it comes to prediction, you will have to do a lot of post processing, because for the model, it will predict 0.8. The end user doesn't know what 0.8 indicate. So for post processing, first you will have to see if it's more than 0.5, you will have to make it 1. And then one class represents dog. So you will have to show dog to the end user. This is a very simple example, but oftentimes you have to do a lot of post processing as well. You have to select the right evaluation metric. You have to do cross validation. You have to deploy your model. And after you have deployed your model, you will also have to monitor its performance over a long period of time. Now, deploying your model is very different from other projects. All these new terms will be introduced to you as soon as you start writing some code in machine learning. Now, here I have segregated them, but in reality, this is how it looks. There are three main stages: data, training, and prediction. And now, all these keywords can come anywhere at any time. It might happen that you are using cross-validation technique, and there you are selecting multiple models, and for each model you are selecting different parameters. And sometimes you can also stack your feature engineering techniques here. Sometimes you check without normalizing, sometimes you check with one hot encoder, and sometimes you check with label encoder. So now you'll see there's no separate place for this thing. The feature engineering part, data visualization part, interpreting your model, that can also come after experimentation that you have tried running, and when you look at the output and then you realize, okay, this model is performing really bad for certain class, so I need to add more data about that class, or I need to have more samples. Once you have collected your data, you might end up going till here. You will evaluate your model, you will do cross validation, and then you will realize, okay, I can introduce a new feature. So you will come here, you will do feature engineering, you will then again do all those things, and then you will come back. So in practice, they are not separate, that once you have done this part, you will never have to again do feature engineering. The idea is there are a lot of moving parts and you have to get all of them right simultaneously. Even if you mess up with one part, or even if one part is suboptimum, then you won't get the best possible score. You have to get all of them right simultaneously. So this makes machine learning quite difficult. Today's focus is not understanding all these things or to simplify machine learning for you, but we'll be talking about scikit-learn, which actually provides a lot of tools for all these different stages of machine learning project. So it has some modules for getting your data. It has a lot of modules for feature engineering, selection, extraction, and other things. Then it has a lot of modules for training your model, for hyperparameter tuning, for ensembling, stacking, and other things, and also for metrics and like validation. So scikit-learn is not the only library that you will use throughout. For a lot of data cleaning, data munging, data labeling, you also use pandas. You also need NumPy knowledge. All those tools are important, but today we'll be looking at scikit-learn. We'll see what all different module it has and how does it support most of the things that are mentioned here. So we'll be exploring scikit-learn in detail, and this is the landscape of machine learning project. So now you know कि ये सब लगता है and how scikit-learn can be used in these different parts of your machine learning project or different stages. Enough understanding about the landscape of machine learning. We'll move to coding directly. For coding, I don't have anything specific prepared. I'll be live coding and we'll see where it takes us. But the primary focus will be to make sure that at the end of the seminar, you are very comfortable with estimators, transformers, and pipelines in scikit-learn. We'll be gradually taking you to those areas. Second is, you can stop me if you have any doubt. Next is, it would be great if you can follow along with me. You'll learn the most when you do it yourself. Try following along. I said there are three things. One is data. Second is training the model. And third is making predictions. These are the three things that we need. First, just like every other machine learning project, we'll start by getting the data. So I'll say from sklearn dot datasets import load iris. I'll import a function called load iris, and then we can get the data. We'll call load iris function. This will basically go on the internet, download the iris dataset for me, and then load that dataset from the hard disk to the RAM, and then it will assign it to our data variable. This data object, which is returned by scikit-learn, it's basically a dictionary. So I can say dot keys, and I'll get all the keys. So these are different keys which are available here. So if I say data dot data, it will return me all the data that is present. So all my labels, features. I can say dot target, and I'll get my targets. So we have zeros, then we have ones, and then we have 2. What does these 0, 1, 2 stand for? We can check the names. 0 is for Setosa, that means first 50 samples are of Setosa flower, and next 50 samples are versicolor, and next 50 samples are Virginica. These are our target names, and if you want to read more about the dataset, you can simply check description. If you do this is all the details about the dataset, in which experiment it was used, who created it, and from where it was downloaded, then what is the mean, medium, and standard deviation, then all these different things. Once we have our data, I'll split it into features and labels. So features will be data.data and labels will be data.target. Now it's very important that as soon as you split your data, you check for the shape of the data to make sure everything is working as expected. So I'll say features dot shape, and I'll say labels dot shape. Total we have 150 samples, and for each of the sample we have 4 features, and then for every sample we have one label. So since we have 150 samples, we have 150 labels. So this is how it looks under the hood. Once we have our data, we can simply import a model from scikit-learn. I'll simply import a linear model, and I know it's a classification problem, so I'll import logistic regression. Then I'll simply say LR is equal to logistic regression, and then I'll say LR dot fit, and I'll pass all my features, and then I'll pass all my labels. I'll say LR dot score. Okay, there's a warning. It says increase the number of iterations. So let's do what the error says. It's a warning. We are still getting our score, so I'll make it 1000. Okay, this is all it takes to initialize your model, train it, and then calculate the score. This very step is for importing. Then we have this step is for initializing the model. We are just defining what variables or operators to use, what will be the initial setup. Once we have defined the model, this step is where actual training takes place. This is where it will go and learn everything that is required from the data that we have passed. And finally, here we are calculating the score or evaluating our model. Let's double click on each of these things to understand better what is happening under the hood. Great. Let's see what lr.score function is doing first. So I'll say lr.score. Now in Jupyter Notebook and similar environments, you can simply say double question mark to look at the source code. If you look at the source code of score, all these things written in triple ticks is basically part of the documentation. So we don't have to worry about it. This is only 2 lines of code that is being executed. First thing is it's using accuracy score function, which it's importing from metrics module. So we'll do the same. We'll say from sklearn dot accuracy. Okay. We'll import accuracy score. Now, since this file is present inside sklearn package, hence it's using dot. But we are importing sklearn from an external location, so we'll have to specify the module name. And once we have accuracy score, so it's passing y and it's passing self.predict. We'll import this thing. So if you look at accuracy score, it takes 2 values. One is y true and one is y predict. So y true is basically the true value of your data. That is like the true predictions, the true labels that you are expecting, that you are trying to train your model for. Here, our y true is basically labels. So I can simply say argument, I already have it, which is called labels, because all our predictions were stored in labels. Next argument is y predict. but I don't have y predict. If you look here, how are we getting y predict? The second argument is basically self dot predict x, and x is basically the first argument. So to get y predict, we can say y predict is equal to, I can say lr dot predict, and then I'll pass my x, which are basically my features. Now, if you already know some object oriented, you will understand self represents the current object, and this current object is basically lr. So hence, instead of using self, I'm calling lr. Let's look at the output. We are getting the exact same result because actually it's doing the same thing under the hood. Once we have trained our model, this is the training step. Once we have trained our model, we can call dot predict to make predictions, and then we can take these predictions and pass it to a scoring function. By default, the scoring function which is used by model.score is accuracy score. This is the default function if your model is a classification model. If it's a regression, the default scoring function is R2. So it's called R2. R2 if it's a regression problem, a regression model. And if it's a classification model, then accuracy score. Accuracy for classification models. These are the default metrics which are used during calculating your model score. And if you don't want the default, you can always use this. Not just accuracy score, you have many other metrics inside scikit-learn. So there's something called precision score, there's something called F1 score, there's something called recall, and like a lot of different things. You can import all of them, and instead of using this, you can use any metric that you want. So precision score also expects you to enter an average value, because if I run it without the average value, it will throw an error that your target is multi-class, because we have 3 classes. If we have only 2 classes, say class 1 and class 2, then it would have worked. But here we have 3 classes, which is Setosa, Versicolor and Virginica. So we'll have to use any one of them. So I'll say macro. So again, whenever you get an error, scikit-learn provides really good and very friendly error messages. So you can just read them to understand what is it expecting. So now we can use precision score. Similarly, we can use F1 and all your metrics are present inside sklearn.metrics, and then you can, it all follows the same syntax. You can use them once you get your true label and your predictions. This was about what lr.score. So instead of doing that, from now on, we'll be doing this. So we'll remove this part and I'll say accuracy score. So once we train our model, we'll be using dot predict method to make predictions, and once we get the predictions, we'll use any evaluation metric to evaluate and compare how good our model is. Now, your predict method, lr.predict method, it basically takes or expects a 2D array. Even if you pass a single sample, you'll have to pass it in a 2D array. So you'll have to add extra brackets. So say for example, I'll say features, and I'll take the first sample, and I'll also take the first label. This is the first sample and this is the first label. This thing is counting the number of opening brackets. This is only 1, so it's 1 dimensional. So if I try to pass features and bracket 0, this will give me an error. Very readable. Expected 2D array, got 1D array instead, which is this value. And if you want to make it into 2D, we can add an extra pair of brackets, and now it should work. The prediction is 0, which is our actual label. Okay, so this is very important to know that predict function always expects a 2D array even if you pass a single sample. We have seen what lr.score does under the hood, and we have pasted it here. Next is dot fit method. Dot fit method, this is the actual place where training takes place. It takes your input data and it also takes your expected output. What is the true label that you are expecting? And then each machine learning model under the hood uses a mathematical structure or a mathematical tool to approximate a random function which will map your features to labels. Features input देने पे it should predict the targets or labels. And we want to figure out what is the function which will do this. So we need to figure out a function definition which works like this. It will take features as input and will return labels as output. And we need to figure out how do we define this function. So every machine learning algorithm will try to make some mathematical use some mathematical tool and try to approximate this function. And this process is called training. So this is a logistic regression model. That simply means it will try to find hyperplane. For finding the plane equation, you will need some coefficients, and during the fit part or during the training process, it will learn those coefficients. Understanding how these algorithms work is again not the focus of this workshop. Just remember there are certain parameters, certain equations or certain structure that your model is trying to learn, and that all takes place in the fit part. So this is how it works. Like, it's pretty simple. Whenever you want to use a model, you will import it. Once you have imported it, you will initialize it. During initialization, you pass some arguments. These arguments help us to control how your model will behave. So you can say number of iterations should be 1000. You can see all these different things, different arguments that are there. My model should use L2 penalty. You can change it to L1. You can say my class weights are none. My intercept scaling is 1. You can say my solver should be something else. You can control the behavior of your model while initializing, and you are just defining, okay, this will be my model object. This is basically a Python class, jahan pe you are passing the initial setup arguments or parameters to set up your model. Once these arguments are all passed, it will return an object of that class, and then you can call dot fit method. So it will take these initial setups, and based on that, it will do the training. You start by importing your model, you initialize it. During initialization, you pass everything, that is all the setup requirement that your model needs. The default values are most of the time pretty good, so you don't have to worry much. And then you ask your model to train provided this data. Once your model is trained, you make these predictions. This is the complete flow. Now, first thing we'll learn is how can we access those values that our model has learned. So I'll quickly move it here. And I said my model learned something during fit phase. So let's actually look at LR dot. And since it's a linear model, it will have something called coefficients. These are the coefficient values. You can also see intercept. These are the intercept values. These are the values that your model has learned during the fit phase. If you try to access these values immediately after defining, so when I say LR equal to this, so it will create a new object. It will overwrite the previous object and it will create a new object. And if I try to access LR dot coefficient, so I'll get an error. Logistic regression has no attribute called coefficient because we have yet not trained this model. You will be able to access these values only after training the model and not before this. All parameters which are learned during the training process, they'll mostly end with underscore, and you can find them once you fit your model. You can see LR dot and you'll see all these extra attributes, classes, coefficients. Everything that ends with underscore is something that your model has learned after dot fit. An iterator, then okay, so you have coefficient, you should also have intercept, and an iterator. These are a few values that your model has learned. Okay, and for every model, these values will be different. In SVM, you will see support vectors. Say in Knifebase, you won't find coefficient and intercept. These model parameters are specific to the model, and you can only access them once you have trained your model. So we have tried accessing coefficient before fit, we got an error, but once you have trained your model, you can access them. These are called model parameters. The values that you pass here, these are called hyperparameters. You can access them as soon as you have defined your model. So I can say LR, and then I can say LR dot max iter, and I can see the value of max iter. It's 1000. I can see the value of penalty. This is to check the values once you have defined your model. And these are the values which you passed as an argument, or it was a default value. So default value is L2, solver is this, your class weight is none, and TOL is this, C is this. So these are all default values and you can access them. Every model will have basically two types of parameters. One are called hyperparameters. Hyperparameters which control the behavior of your model, and you pass them during initialization, and you can access them immediately after initialization. So these are your hyperparameters. Next class of parameters is model parameters. Now, people use different name for them, but here I'll be making it very clear for this session. Model parameters are basically what your model learns during training. For example, coefficient and intercept. This is what your model was able to learn after the training process. And hyperparameters are basically the arguments that you pass during initialization. These are two types of parameters, and you can access hyperparameters immediately after initializing your model. You can only access model parameters after training your model. And these values are learned during the training process. That means dot fit. Let's quickly revise if code if making more sense now. We'll import the model, we'll initialize it with all the arguments which are basically hyperparameters which we can use to control the behavior of the model. Once we have defined our model, we can call dot fit to learn all the parameters. This is the training stage. It will learn all the parameters, and then it will use those parameters to make predictions in future. This is how your dot fit works. This is most amazing part of scikit-learn, the consistent API. I'll say from sklearn dot support vector. Then if you want to import something which is a tree-based model, so I'll say sklearn dot tree, and then I'll import the decision tree. So you'll see for all the models, all you have to know is the family name. So the syntax is very consistent. Scikit-learn, then you say the module name or the family name to which your model belongs, and then you can import that particular model. There can be many possible models. So if I say decision tree, so there's one regression model, there's one classification model. Say for linear regression, you will find a lot of things. So there's something called lasso, there's something called lasso LAR, there's lasso CV, then there's ridge regression. All these models are basically part of linear model family, and you can import any of them, and you just have to make sure you understand the problem in hand, whether it's classification or regression problem, and based on that we'll have to import it. Logistic regression is a special case. It's basically a classification algorithm, but it has regression in it. And SVC is for, again, support vector classifier. If you import SVR, that is support vector regressor. Decision tree classifier. You don't have to remember a lot. You can simply say from sklearn, then start typing a rough family name that you expect. Or if you're using Jupyter Notebook and stuff, you can simply press tab to get all the possible modules. So if you want to use Knifebase algorithm, you can use Knifebase and import Gaussian NB. Most of the things you will get them in autocomplete. You don't have to like remember a lot. Sklearn dot, if you want to say use neighbor based algorithm, just say neighbor, import, and type capital K, you will get K neighbor classifier. It's that easy. Importing is very natural. All you have to do is spend some time understanding which model belongs to which class, and even if you can press tab after dot to see all the family names, and if you have a rough idea where this model should belong, you can select that family name and then you can start typing the model name. It's that easy. Now I'll make some changes. Instead of this, I'll say model. Instead of this, I'll say model. And here as well, I'll say model. All I have to do is change this part. And I'll get an accuracy. I can change this and I'll get an accuracy. Okay. You will realize that we don't have to change any piece of code. And this is what makes scikit-learn so powerful. It's consistent API. Every machine learning model will follow the same syntax: .fit, .predict, and you'll get the prediction. You can call the same function. Also, you'll realize I'm not doing anything to features and label. This code is untouched. Even if you use a completely different model, we were using logistic regression, now we are using decision tree, but we don't have to change anything. This consistent API makes scikit-learn so powerful. This is how you can use all these different models: scikit-learn, family name, and then the name of the model. Once you get comfortable with this, also we have already seen sklearn dot datasets, which is basically where you'll find all your datasets, and then you can import the one that you want. I'll say load Boston. And we also saw metrics, right? From sklearn, अब metrics कहाँ पे रहेंगे? Dot metrics में. I've learned two important things. One is how model works. You'll have to import it, then you'll have to initialize it. During initialization, you pass certain arguments. These are basically hyperparameters to control the model behavior. And then during the fit phase, actual training takes place. Your model will learn some values and you can access these values. These are called model parameters, and you can access these values only after training the model. And then you can use these values to make predictions. So this was the first important thing. Second is the consistent API structure of scikit-learn. Everything looks very natural if you understand these patterns. Scikit-learn, then technically these are the name of the modules. In datasets, you will have everything related to datasets implemented. In linear models, you will have all the linear models. In SVM, you will have all the SVM based models, and so on.